let's start the show. At the time of me writing the script, I'm currently in my third attempt. No pressure, but here we go. Again. In an ever-prevalent world of technological advancement, the urge to switch out and replace old and outdated systems with vibrant new ones is tempting. But are they always the best move going forward? One may argue that if something isn't broken, what is the point in fixing it? Or if something is indeed in fact broken and you attempt to fix it, is the fix not then possibly creating an entirely new problem altogether? Much like a hydra, where if you chop off its head only to find out another has taken its place, when can an alleged fix wind up causing more problems? Or in some certain cases, when can it cause problems for a certain select group of people by design? Today I would like to argue that in our new world of cloud gaming, we still desperately need physical media. In my honest opinion, the new style of digital downloads, while eliminating waste used in manufacturing of discs, winds up discriminating against the poor. In this video essay, I will be using observations as well as my own opinions to address problems within the gaming industry. Now, for the sake of this video, I will try to primarily deal with just the concept of physical media. I will not be dealing with microtransactions and downloadable content. That particular form of subject matter deserves their own individual video. Plus, according to my executive producer Scott, covering more material muddles my argument. So let's head back to the thesis, that cloud gaming discriminates against the poor. We'll start in the present, and then I can slowly start going backwards in time in order to add credibility to my argument. A few blocks away from my apartment happens to be a library. On top of the books, videos, and CDs that top the shelves, those who have a library card also have access to an amazing catalog of games they can borrow. If the demand isn't high, you can extend your copy for another week. If the library doesn't have a game on the shelves, you can get it ordered there so long as the online database says it's available to reserve. Earlier this year, I was able to play Red Dead Redemption 2, Resident Evil 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and many more as a result of this system. Games that, by all accounts, retail for the price of $79.99 Canadian. That is, of course, if you buy them new. Having access to a library, or even friends who are willing to share, gives the ability for those who otherwise cannot afford it to enjoy it. Now, there will be some people who will make the argument that if someone cannot afford the cost of the entertainment, maybe they shouldn't partake in it. They might also bring up the argument that the cost of creating such entertainment is quite high, and that the price of the entertainment is determined so developers can afford the ability to continue making games. My response to this line of reasoning hasn't really changed. Essentially, the first statement in that hypothetical conversation, which was that if you can't afford it, maybe you shouldn't be using it, is a dangerous stance to take. You see, that argument isn't just us talking about video games, but of private versus public ownership. Something that, if you're in the United States, can affect everything from healthcare, education, the postal service, copyright law, infrastructure, transportation, etc., etc. If you wish to have my take on it, I do not trust the private sector.
Doesn't that make you a goddamn communist?
No, because advocating against financial discrimination is a valid stance to take, regardless of economic affiliation. Everyone should have access to entertainment. In 2019, Disney decided not to renew the license of the digital rights management software, aka DRM, for the PC version of Tron Evolution. As a result of that decision, the people who legally purchased this game now no longer have access to it, despite the fact they legally own their copy, while those who circumvented the software from the beginning were unaffected. I want to make it very clear that I am not upset that the system in place to prevent pirating the software made it so that the software is only accessible to those who have pirated it. My ire is directed towards a principle known as you get what you pay for. When I buy a physical copy of a game, it is in fact my copy. I paid for it in a shop, and thus I can do whatever I want with it, regardless if the developers stop providing online support or server space. With the Tron Evolution example above, the gamers who paid for it rightfully assumed they owned their copy. However, instead of that, they essentially owned a lease that was revoked when the DRM expired. Once again, it sets a dangerous precedent because the question concerning cloud gaming as to whether or not the customer owns what they paid for, Disney said in this particular case a resounding no. I want to ask you, the viewer watching this video currently, What would stop any other gaming company from doing this exact same thing with their titles? Now, let's move on to the price of gaming. I am a person who has spent the entirety of my life in a lower middle class upbringing. After college, I currently live as a member of the working class. I do not have the ability to go out and buy everything I want, and as such, I have to budget. This also explains my choices and what I review, but I digress. The argument that video games cost too much to make doesn't really hold much water. For a smaller indie game studio, it might apply, but the companies who use this argument aren't that. Massive corporations such as Electronic Arts, Ubisoft, 2K Games, etc., use this argument, but the problem is, when you break it down, lack of money isn't an issue. The vast majority of the money is going to the executive branch instead of the developers. CEOs and shareholders are earning an astonishing amount of money, while the developers are overworked, underpaid, and genuinely treated as expendable. As a musician, it's like if Spotify started complaining that there's no money in the music industry. There is. It's just going to the wrong people who aren't even involved in the creative process, like Spotify. I mean this respectfully, but saying that games cost too much to make is a flawed argument. As such, I'm moving onwards. When you have the ability to transfer ownership of a game, whether it's by buying used, borrowing from a friend, or taking out a copy from the library, it also allows people the ability to experiment. When I was in grade school, I would often walk to the local Blockbuster and rent a game for roughly around $10. As a result of this lowered price, I was able to pick up games that I wouldn't normally buy. This freedom to experiment led to me discovering new games that I would eventually physically buy, from Ace Combat 5 to the Yakuza franchise, and many more. This example isn't just me waxing nostalgic for my childhood. Frankly, my childhood wasn't very good. Physical media allowed me to try out and experiment the obscure, which is different from scrolling past the long pages of nothing in the online storefront. When you switch to cloud gaming, you primarily don't have the same amount of freedom. Most players will have to pray a game they're interested in will go on sale on the storefront, and even then, there's a certain something missing compared to holding a physical copy. At the time of me writing this, I wonder if instead of being born in 1990, I was born today. Would I have the same passion for video games that I have now? Would I be able to go down that rabbit hole and explore games outside of the Fortnites and Call of Duties? While I don't have an answer to that, I feel like getting rid of physical media would be a very bad decision, and that's my honest opinion. This video was proudly supported by Unsung Heroes of Patreon.
Hey everybody, Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD, saying thank you so much for catching my small little video essay on why we still need physical media in the gaming industry. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this video and leave me a comment down below in the comments section. Regardless of what you think, whether or not you agree or disagree, let me know so that way we can keep this conversation going. If you look up here on this side of the webpage, it'll be whatever YouTube recommends that you watch, and down here is going to be a playlist of my original series, Always Write Reviews. So if this is your first time seeing and hearing me, maybe you want to check that out. Either way, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. My name is Matthew Tyler DeLeo, better known as SonicMTD. Arigato gozaimasu, and later days.